Hello, this is Ms. DB. In this video we are going to do some examples from the factoring quadratics when a is not equal to 1 assignment. There's other videos that you should watch that explain how to do this as well. I'm just going to do a couple more examples. So it starts off with a reminder of how to use FOIL to multiply two binomials together. And I'm just going to remind you of those steps. FOIL stands for first. So in number 2, you would multiply the first term times the first term. And then you multiply the outer. The O is for outer. So this would be 3x times negative 3. And then you multiply the inner. 2 times 2x. And then you multiply last times last. So this would be plus 2 times negative 3. And then you simplify each set of multiplications here. So 2x times 3x would be 6x squared. 3x times negative 3, I could have wrote that as a negative, I could have wrote minus 9x, but that's okay, plus negative 9x. 2 times 2x is 4x, and 2 times negative 3 is minus 6, or you can write plus negative 6. And then you combine your like terms. So 6x squared, negative 9x plus 4x is minus or negative 5x, so I can just write minus 5x and then minus 6. So in a quadratic, the general form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this quadratic, a is equal to 6, b is equal to negative 5, and c is equal to negative 6. It's important that you know what these coefficients are for the following worksheet, especially when we do factoring by grouping. So what we're going to do today is take a problem like this and factor it into an answer like that. So there's a lot of different possible factors of some of these things. So it gets to be kind of a long process. There's several ways of doing this, and if you search the internet, you'll find kind of some interesting methods that aren't are a little hard to remember. We're going to look at two different methods. We're going to look at trial and error, or guess and check, if you want to call it that way, and we're going to look at factoring by grouping. So two methods. You can use whichever one you feel most comfortable with. If you're good at factoring already and you have a preferred method, then you can certainly go ahead and use that. The first example here goes through the steps for factoring by guess and check. It doesn't really take this long once you've done a couple, because you start to think about you start to think ahead at what's going to happen. But the idea is for guess and check that you write your two sets of parentheses and then you figure out what goes in them. So for 4x squared plus 16x plus 15, and you do this in pencil so that you can erase, or if you're typing then you can just delete. I know that the first term times the first term has to equal 4x squared, because that's what we FOILed to get it. First times first is right here, and that equals your first term. So maybe it's 4x and x, or maybe it's 2x and 2x, or maybe it's x and 4x. See how there's lots of options. So in order to guess and check, you really just got to pick something and go with it. You might want to also, before you pick, look at your other values, your a and your b and your c, and see if that gives you any hint about what, and it doesn't for me at this point, but I'm going to go ahead, I'll try the 4 and the 1x, or 4 and x. And then you look at your last term, and you look at the factors of that. Now the first factors I think of course, are 3 times 5. And now I check. And how do I check? I check with FOIL. So first times first is 4x squared. So the first times first is good, I got that part. And then this outer, it's going to be too big, because it's 5 times 4x is 20x, and the inner is 3x. So I can stop there. It's not going to work. That is not going to equal 16. So then I stop, or I erase, and I start over. And I say, okay, let's try the 2x and the 2x for my factors of 4x squared. And I'll stick with the plus 3 and the plus 5 for now. And then I check with FOIL. So the first term prime first term, I already know that's going to work. And then I check my outer. 2x times 5 is 10x. That's good. And 3 times 2x is 6x. That's good, because I wanted to get to 16x. This is very good. Let's check our last times last. 3 times 5 is 15. So it only took me 2 tries, not 6 or whatever they did over there, to get my correct factors. And the answer is right here. It gets kind of confusing, like, where's your answer? Because you check it, you have to check it, or you're not going to know if it's right or not. So here's your, there they have it nice and typed. That's the method called guess and check. There's another method called factoring by grouping. We looked at this in the last assignment where we factored trinomials that did not have a number in front of the x squared term, so a was equal to 1. And we practiced this. So this should, if you did those problems and understood them, this shouldn't be that bad. This is, sometimes this method is fast because you find the factors that work right away, or sometimes there's not very many factors to check. But sometimes that method takes a long time. This method might originally seem like it takes longer, but you find the right answer faster. So they both have advantages and disadvantages. It's really which one you understand better and feel more comfortable using and getting the correct answers. So in this one, this is, remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is 2, b is 13, c is 15. Your first step is to make sure you can't factor anything out, and then identify what those are, a, b, and c. I already did that. And then we're going to multiply a and c together. So in our problem, we have to multiply 2 and 15. Now, in the last worksheet, we only had to look at c because a was always 1, and 1 times 15 would be 15. Now we do have to take into account what a is equal to. Once you know what that is, we want the factors of 30, so something times something equals 30, and those factors have to add up to the middle term of b, which is 13. So think about what times what equals 30, that when you add them would equal 13. And 10 times 3, I can't guess. I can't pretend that I don't know it's 10 times 3, because 10 times 3 is 30, and 10 plus 3 is 13. Sometimes they're just really obvious like that. Sometimes you have to list them out to find them, especially if there's like negatives involved. Okay, so the ones that I want is 10 and 3. So you're going to rewrite the middle term as a sum of 2 terms using these coefficients. So that's all the way down to step 4. Now they rewrote 13x as 3x plus 10x, but I'm going to do it with 10x and 3x just to show you that it works either way. So the first term stays the same. It was 2x squared. But instead of plus 13x, I'm going to write plus 10x plus 3x, because that does equal 13x. There's nothing wrong with writing it with an equivalent expression. And then it was plus 15. Plus 15. Now I am going to group those into 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to move it over a little bit. 2x squared plus 10x is my first group. And don't forget your sign in between your parentheses. And then this is my second group, 3x plus 15. And you can go back later and look at their example that they did where they wrote it 3x and 10x and make sure that it works both ways. It will. All right, common factor in this parentheses. Let's see, they both have an x, and you could factor a 2 out of both. So 2x, you put that in front, and then you write in the parentheses what you would get if you divided each term by the greatest common factor. 2x squared divided by 2x, all you'd have left is one of the x's. 10x divided by 2x, and you can always do this off to the side. The x's will cancel. 10 divided by 2 is 5. All right, move on to the second set of parentheses. Find the greatest common factor. You could divide both of these by 3, and then find what would be the result if you divided each term by the greatest common factor. So we would have x plus 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now the polynomial or the binomial should match. If it doesn't, you got to go back to the drawing board and see where your mistake is. So mine does match, so I can take that common binomial and put it in front in parentheses, and then in the other parentheses you write what's left, 2x plus 3. And their answer was 2x plus 3 times x plus 5. Mine was x plus 5 times 2x plus 3. These are equivalent expressions. They're the same. You can use the commutative property and say that you can multiply things in either order, and we will know that those are both the same thing that way. So on your worksheet, you are going to do some problems like this. There's more examples here. There's an example here that I didn't go over. There's this example. There's more examples in your book. And then these two problems are in the videos that are in your assignment in the folder in Blackboard. And you can watch a video to see how to do them either with trial and error, guess and check, or with factoring by grouping. And then you're going to complete these problems in either way, but you do need to show your work. Let's look at, there is a couple problems, I think there's 3 that you have to factor out the greatest common factor first. Like 9 tells you that that is there, and 11 says for you to check, and there's one more for you to find that has a greatest common factor. So make sure you factor that out first. If you factor out the greatest common factor, that number goes in front of your answer. So in 9, I mean, we can probably tell that 12 is the greatest common factor. 12 will be part of your answer when you're done. So you factor it out, and then at the end you put it back in front. Let's do number 7 with trial and error, guess and check. So for guess and check, you write your 2 sets of parentheses, and then you figure out what options would I have to get the first times first equals 3x squared. So it's going to be x and x for sure to get the x squared, but do I want 3 and 1, or do I want 1 and 3? I'm not sure. And then 8. The last term is -8. I need the factors of -8. So I'm just going to guess and check, but those possible factors could be 4 and -2, or -4 and +2, or it could be 8 and -1, or -8. And those are the possible ones that I'm going to try. I'll just start at the top and do a +4 and a -2. Now I have no idea if this is correct, so I have to check by foiling. Guess and check means you check. So first times first, that's almost always going to work. And then here's my outer, 3x times -2. 3 times -2 is -6x. And then the inner, that's +4x. Oh, this is close, but it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because I'm going to get a -2 instead of a +2 when I add my like terms. But it's close. So I'm going to write the same, I'm going to just put it over here, and then I'll cross it out. I'm going to keep the 3x and the 1x, but instead of a +4 and a -2, I'm going to do a -4. And a +2, and see if, and then I gotta check again and see if it works. So first term times first term, yeah, that's good. Okay, outer plus inner, those are the really parts you have to check. So I have 3x times 2, that's 6x, and the inner is -4 times 1x. Hey, this is going to give me a +2x, and then the last times last should be good. This now gives me +2x, is what I needed to have to match the original problem. So this didn't work. This is my answer right here. Should I highlight it a bit? There. And that's the guess and check method. And I'll do one problem starting out with the, look at number, I don't know, 14. 14 we have, for our first term times first term would be either 2x, 2x, or 4x and 1x, and it could be 1x and 4x. And for 9, I could do 9, 1, 3, 3, and I could switch the order of the 9 and 1. So there's getting to be kind of a lot going on. So that's when I think that the other method, the factoring by grouping, when there's lots of options, this can be a better way. So the middle term is 12. This A is 4, B is 12, and C is 9. There's no common factors that I can factor out. So the steps I go through is I multiply A times C, 4 times 9, so that's 36. And I want the factors of 36 that when you add them would equal the middle term of 12. So let's see, we have 4 times 9, but that's not 12, that's 13. 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36, and 6 plus 6 is 12. So that means that I want to rewrite my middle term of 12x as 6x plus 6x. So I start rewriting. First term stays the same. The 12x I'm going to change to plus 6x plus 6x, and then plus 9. And I'm going to let you finish this, but remember that you'll put parentheses, and then you'll factor out the greatest common factor from each set of parentheses, and then you'll be able to factor out the common binomial, and then write in the other set of parentheses, you'll be able to write what's left. All right, have some fun with this. Practice, 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 and let me know if you need any help. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful